Hello everyone, welcome to the second video in this series for 16 and a half best tips and tricks to master sweep picking. Before I start for this one, the fundamental for this video is going to be to practice in the morning and at night and get good sleep. And the reason for this is to have better consolidation. So if you practice at night, you'll remember everything better in the morning. And if you practice in the morning, you'll be able to recover more of some of the memory that you may have lost. And it's better than just working on this at different parts of the day. So let's not waste any time here. Again, there's the rest of the tips and tricks are in the link down in the description, as well as a link to guitartricks.com, which has like basically everything you need. But moving on. So for this major shape again, tip number 4 is going to be to sweep without the right hand, paying attention all the direction switches. So for this one, it's going to be upstroke, upstroke, upstroke. And then when you move downward, you're going to go to the 3 and do a downstroke, and then the 2 as well. All downstrokes, and then now you're reset and ready to play the sweep again. So what I'm implying with this is don't worry about the left hand just yet. Just mimic the pattern, which is going to be upstroke, 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 and 2 downstrokes, and practice that with the right hand. It's going to sound something like that, and what this does is that it trains your right hand to execute those direction switches, which are a very small part of the sweep, but a very important one. So 3 upstrokes, 2 downstrokes, and then eventually throw a chord in there. Next, this one is very similar, is to practice the picking direction switches in the beginning and at the end of the sweep. So when you get to the end, you switch directions on the 2nd string even though you ended on the 3rd. Upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. That's going to be one of the tricky picking direction switches that might hinder you, so practice that direction switch. And if you're having trouble in the beginning, or when you come back down to the beginning, remember that from the 3 to the 2 is a downstroke as well. And then when you get back to the original starting note, it's going to be an upstroke. So maybe you end this way, and notice that when you hit the first one, you're resetting it, pull off, and then upstroke again, and then downstroke again. Downstroke, downstroke. So practice those picking direction switches, and it may seem a little trivial for a 3-string series of sweep picking shapes, but it'll be a lot more helpful later on with the 4, 5, or even 6 and beyond sweeps that you might be doing. And then tip number 6 is to practice this sweep picking pattern in reverse. So it's going to sound like this, where you start with the downstroke all the way down, and then upstroke up to the 2nd one, and then downstroke again. So it's almost identical, but to a lot of people, including myself, the reverses always feel like a totally different sweep picking pattern. So make sure that you practice those as well. Now for all of you who picked the minor shape, again, it's going to be the same configuration in the right hand as the previous one. So upstroke, 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 downstroke, downstroke. Upstrokes, 2 downstrokes. So you might have similar trouble at the end because you are using a different string to do the switch. You end up on the 3rd one with an upstroke, and then switch starting back on the 2nd one with a downstroke. So practice that sweep direction switch. So play it like if it was a normal sweep, as slow as you need to. Utilize the 3rd for your upstroke, and then transition back to a downstroke, but land on the 2nd string. And then when you're going in reverse again, At least it's easier on the first string because you're hitting two different notes, so you have a better opportunity to get the pick in the right place. But again, picking direction switches are very important. Okay, so tip number 5, which was again to practice the picking direction switches at the end. Oh, sorry. I covered trick number 5. Number 4 is to sweep with the right hand only. So I guess we're going to combine 4 and 5. And it's going to sound like that. 3, up, 2 down. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but do that so that you can mimic the feel of the sweep without actually using your left hand, and then slowly start to integrate your left hand in there. So now again, sweep picking tip number 6, practice it in reverse. Down, 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 and then up when you reset again. Down, 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 up, up, down, 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 up, up. So some of you actually might prefer the sweep in reverse. If you do, then definitely start with that one if it's easier for you, and then try and work in all the tips that I've taught you, starting with that note. But the emphasis here is, again, because to some of you, including myself, it feels like a totally different sweep picking shape in reverse. And it's very awkward because maybe your fingers are not used to that as well. So what you would need to do there is, again, practice it in reverse until you're just as good forwards and backwards. Maybe you're not able to complete a total cycle, but this is definitely going to fill in that gap. So number 4 again is going to be very similar, except that with that extra note, you're going to have to pass over the 3rd string on the upstroke a little bit quicker. I mean, 1 extra time. So for this one, actually, it might be a little bit easier for y'all because of that reason. So mimic the sound of the right hand movement as if it were regular sweep. So for this one, it's a little bit different. You add a note, so you do 3 upstrokes, and then end up with your upstroke on the 3rd string, so that when you switch, you don't go immediately to the 2nd, you start on the 3rd again. So the 3rd gets picked twice. So once on the way up, and then once on the way down when you're doing that hammer on. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's going to be 3 upstrokes, 3 downstrokes. So tip number 5, again, work on the picking direction switches at the beginning and the end. So for the first one, you know that you're going to end up doing that a lot because that picking direction switch has 2 different notes to it, so it has 2 different directions on it, so it's a little easier. So you pick down, down when you're coming back, so that's a downstroke, and then 3 upstrokes again, pull off, upstroke, upstroke, and then this is the other direction switch where you switch from an upstroke on this 4th note right here, and then you hammer on the 5th note back to the 4th note, downward, downward, and downward again. So if you're having trouble with both of the ends being a little bit unstable for you, practice them, and that way you'll, again, get better muscle memory, and it's gonna feel like the sweep is more complete, even if you can't do a complete cycle yet. So that's what it would sound like if you're emphasizing just the direction switches and making sure that the pick is in the right direction when you're going in that direction. And so finally, for tip number 6, it was going to be to practice the sweep in reverse. So this one, since it's so symmetrical, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Down, hammer on, down, down again, and then up. Pull off, up, up. So this one shouldn't be too tricky. Either way, it's 3 upstrokes if you start on the 1, or 3 downstrokes if you go backwards starting on the 5. And this one again is pretty self-explanatory, but if you learn it in reverse, it's going to be a lot easier completing the cycle. So anyway, thanks y'all. Really appreciate you staying this long. Stay tuned for the next video where we're going to go over tips 7, 8, and 9, and where I'm going to introduce another fundamental. Yeah, stay tuned.